love you, I do. I love you, I do.
Hello, beautiful friends. We are back. I'm going to start here in bliss. That's how we do things in bliss. And so I call this the Ascension update. And I feel like we have been doing Ascension updates regularly since 2020. And that, of course, unbelievable changes have taken place. But one thing I would say is the overarching theme of this ascension, and that is the return of the mother. And with that returns Christ's consciousness. It is the Holy Trinity, after all. And so we are here together, witnessing, experiencing, but also participating in the greatest planetary magic. I always have to look back to many lifetimes that are parallel in other universes, galaxies, planetary systems to see the big picture. So it is really impossible to explain it from just the consciousness of the person that we are in this world. So much has gone into this. So much has gone into this in this lifetime since the moment we entered, in all the other lifetimes since the moment we entered. So it's a big, big cosmic story. It ultimately, for us here, human beings on this planet, who are the children of God, that all human beings are, is about the return of Christ consciousness within us. Whatever label we give it, whatever name we give it, we're going to come up with something else. Yogananda had a great name for it too. It is the return of our true natural cosmic nature. It is the return of our true cosmic love and intelligence and emanation. But of course, in that Holy Trinity, it also is the return of the Mother. The Mother. And so here she is. As you know, we follow the path here that seems to have so many aspects to it, but ultimately it is the path of the Mother, and at the same time it is the path of the Father and the path of Christ. We are guided mainly by Yogananda, but so many others have come to guide us. And again, it's one big cosmic family. And so it was in March on the 21st, which aligned with the spring equinox for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, very important planetary point. During this point, something miraculous happened. The ascension pathways, which means the horizontal and vertical axis within this planet, have realigned. That means this planet is no longer a trap. That to me is the, one of the latest huge victories for humanity and all life, of course. Divine Mother appeared to us in the Mojave Desert, and as a surprise, she brought with her turquoise waters. We talked about it here, what could that mean? And some of you suggested those are the waters of Mu. And I believe that those are the pristine waters of the original creation. And so since March 21st, we have been following the path of the turquoise waters. Many seers around the world have reported on the same. They have been guided to go to the turquoise waters. Many of you follow Mr. MBB333 Michael on YouTube, who always presents when something supernatural is happening and people document it on their phones with cameras, with videos. And suddenly supernatural things started to happen in the Caribbean. I was searching online, where do we find the most turquoise waters in the world? And of course, there are many places. But I found that apparently the most turquoise waters in the world are in Turks and Caicos. Turks sounds almost like turquoise, so maybe that there's a link. And so very spontaneously, with not much planning, not knowing really what I was doing, I asked my husband if he would be willing to go on an adventure that was not really planned, but it ended up being really divinely orchestrated. And so this morning at 10 a.m., just before the first call, we returned a very long way, as you can imagine, from these islands in the Caribbean where we found, I believe, truly, the most pristine water of the mother. The reason why I felt this call was important is to share the knowledge given to us humanity through these waters and why they are so important. I personally, this was my first time in the Caribbean islands, and maybe some of you, let me know here in the chat, have been to Turks and Caicos. It was unbelievable. And we ended up on a small, not even an island. It is an island, but they call the small islands keys. So, like, you have Florida Keys, and then the islands are bigger, but this was a tiny little island that they call a key. So, really, I would say alone on an island. You work there, Rosanne. That's amazing. Yeah, so this was one of the really small keys that we ended up on. So, I received for us here, hopefully for humanity, amazing knowledge from the waters. Wonderful. Great to know. So if you want to visit, I recommend definitely going off the beaten path and not staying on the big islands that they have, but to go to those small islands and the small keys away from, of course, tourism. So unfortunately today, after I did the first call, the false matrix wanted to play with my technology because it always does. It uses technology. So it's destroying my technology here. So I don't know which slides will be coming up next, but I will just attune to us here and share some magic. To share the magic, actually, to be honest with you, before the call, I was meditating outside where I always meditate, where I meditate several times a day, and where I every day connect to all the children of God in this world, whether we know each other or not, whether we know them or not. And as we do our invocations from the heart, we ask that may all children of God self-realize the Christ within. So I just went out and I closed my eyes. It's very hot here today in Northern California. So I closed my eyes and I just said that. May all children of God self-realize the Christ within. I expected nothing as a response. I just said it. But with my eyes closed, the entire field around me flooded with the light that you see here, this turquoise, no, sorry, the blue light, the electric blue light we associate with the light of Sirius. And then a beam of golden light came into my field. So I knew that on this call tonight, all children of God that we are will self-realize the Christ, and this will have an amazing ripple out effect into this world. So there is so much that was given from the waters in the Caribbean that I am decoding it myself. As you know, we always have to decode everything that was given. So many visions, so many unbelievable revelations. For me, the process is I see it for many, many hours as a revelation. And then I have to write it all down, which I have done. And so I will share that in circle. But also I'm refining it to make it more digestible and clear. It was so much. So I will definitely just try to explain some of it here. And again, I don't yet have the perfect vocabulary, the perfect metaphors, but whatever comes, comes. So since March 20th, just the equinox portal, we have the Ascension portals in alignment, vertical and horizontal. This is so huge. This is part of the prophecy. This is when people talk about the condor and the eagle. This is all about the North and the South Pole. When people talk about the four corners, it is about the alignment of these axes within the Earth, North and South, East and West. Without the proper alignment, people were not ascending. When they left the body, they would just go into the lower or slightly better astral and come right back or soon after. So the ascension pathways did not exist easily or could not be found easily. And so now, this year, as we call it here, ascension pathways have opened and they will stay in alignment like this. So you could say that everyone leaving the body now is becoming ascended. Where they go will be determined by their energetics, by the vibration. But I will share something here that will help us all to be in the highest vibration. So, part of the prophecy, of course, has always been finding the four corners within, but people thought it was somewhere on the map. People thought it was the four corners between four states. It's actually the proper alignment of these axes within, horizontal and vertical. That means North Pole no longer is dangerous like it was because we had a tilt. We still might have a tilt determined by scientists, but this is about the spiritual, the soul energy of the earth. So we now are able to go straight up, the true north. We didn't have the true north. You know how so many gurus, like including Yogananda and so many teachers and great avatars, Swami Kaleshwar, always said, don't sleep with your head towards the north. Why is that? I love that we had double rainbow. That's great. It is because they didn't want us to face with our crown the false north. They wanted us to realign, and it was impossible to really easily. Possible, but not easy at all. I don't know how many beings managed to realign with the true north within. I would say maybe 1% that we know in human history, and that's very little. But now it is for all of us. So these are the big changes. Here we have reported on huge changes starting, of course, I would say in 2020. 2020 was the biggest breakthrough, and ever since then, it's just a continuous process that could be fresh almost every day. Something new is revealed almost every day. We have to be able to meditate, of course, and to focus within to be able to truly see this, because it's definitely this world. I don't know what it's doing right now on the outside, but I think they're trying every possible way to restore the false matrix, which they cannot. And it's just one distraction after another distraction. So to be able to self-realize Christ consciousness, it is a state of such incredible love and peace and emanation that no words will do it any justice. And as a matter of fact, our language is actually the language of the false matrix, whether it is English, German, French, Italian, I don't know. These are the false matrix languages. So, whatever word we say, we surely have some kind of already attachment to what it means. When we say love, when we say sin, we will speak about sin today, we will speak about love today. Then we all probably, just because of the language, already have such baggage attached to it. So, words in these languages cannot do it any justice. But for us, we can go within and tap into our own Christ intelligence within. Again, language calls it Christ consciousness. That for many people, including myself, often means the first thing I think about, oh yeah, Jesus. And then I think about the false matrix calling him Jesus. Whereas Yogananda says in the second coming of Christ, his name was not Jesus, his name was not Yeshua, his name was Isa. So you see what language has done for us. So to be able to speak about Christ consciousness, we are speaking about our true nature. And so let's say that it is our true nature to be a son, not a son like the Son of God, which we all are, but the luminous one of God, the luminous sun, the star, S-U-N, Son of God that we are. That is what our divine self is. So that is our true nature. So that means there must be something that is also not our true nature, and that is the world that we in and what it called us, what it gave us as identity. The personality self that we all probably have become after we were little kids, and it developed through so many manipulative forces. So this is a rapid evolutionary shift into our true nature. So I believe Ascension updates are important when they are accurate. And, you see all sorts of stuff on YouTube these days. That's the only social media I look at, YouTube. And then I look at what the Greek seer Irene is posting in Greece. And, YouTube, it's taken over by the false matrix. and it's just AI producing content that people will click on, pretending to be a person, pretending to be a human, using human voice, and actually just nonsense. So it's good to have Ascension updates that are pointing us in the right direction. And the direction that we will be here pointing into, I think this is the most important direction, and that all Ascension updates in this world must point at that direction. And that is the direction of empowerment, not from an outside anything, but from within. And that would be the Christ within. So in this work that we do here at Green Tara, it's been interesting. If you started with us in 2020, it's been first about the Divine Mother and all of her different emanations. Then suddenly Shiva came, Divine Father, we had Christ. And now the focus for all that I foresee for the next who knows how long, maybe probably until Ascension is complete, is Christ consciousness. Krishna consciousness. So when we talk about Christ, we think about the anointed one that we called in this world Jesus. And when we talk about Krishna, we probably think about the Hindu tradition and the being that we knew as Krishna. From my experience of out of body travel and meditation, I can tell that there are many, 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 I don't know how to count them, beings that fully embody and express this quality, this natural intelligence, this natural emanation, and that they are all interconnected. And they actually do travel to worlds where they are needed. So to uplift the world with a light that is emanating from their true self, not the person that they become. And I don't know how many planets need them, but I could tell that there are so many. So I don't want to limit it to Jesus and Krishna. But right now, what people call the second coming of Christ is us being here, the ones who came to represent this energy, this intelligence, this nature, this love, this shine from within. So it is truly us as a collective of the children of God. You know, out of body experiences lately have been so revealing many different layers of our reality, our realm, how manipulated it has been, that we can't even imagine it. I always tell my family when I share these things, I say, even with the wildest imagination, it is still unbelievable. It is still unimaginable. The level of manipulation that this realm and this humanity has experienced. And so the revelations are happening right now. And that means that the time is for the children of God to really stand up and to be their true nature, which can only be Christ self, Krishna self. And again, I'll have to, I'm going to journal about this and ask the divine self to find ways to describe this without just repeating names that we all kind of have some kind of baggage attached to, so that we can be completely free from the false matrix influences and the baggage that's just indescribable that came from that. So what would it be like if a being fully now was in their Krishna consciousness in this world, in their emanation? They would not identify in any way, like it would be impossible for them to sink to the level of the personality self. They would not be fooled by the body. They would not be fooled by thoughts, because thoughts are actually interference. For those of you who participated in the online retreat, part 1, Liberation from Samsara, we only will do part 2, which will be the final one. If you participated in the Illuminate Your Mind, that we talked about thoughts as interference that comes into our field like insect. So if you imagine a bunch of, I wanted to say tomatoes, but don't imagine tomatoes. Bunch of mosquitoes coming into your field. And now they want to interfere with you. That would be so annoying. But that's what thoughts do. It is a swarm of actually insect, and I think the false matrix created it that way, but invisible to humans unless they are able to see with their inner sight. And so we do need to zap them and spray them, right? And that is exactly what our divine self would do. The divine self is that instrument within us that is unaffected by this insect. It cannot be influenced, it cannot be shaken, it cannot be scared by anything within the world of the samsara, of the false matrix. It exists beyond it, but it is shining like the sun upon the person who is here in the world. And if we are a real human being, which we will speak about, which of course you are, then you have a body that has a spiritual structure. And it is the spiritual structure that is in and around the body, including your etheric body, including your cosmic DNA, that then can receive the light of the divine self and become your operating system. So a Christed one is fully centered above the threshold of liberation. They never needed to be enslaved by the false matrix because they are the Christed one. So liberation is a process, becoming free from. The Christed one has never been enslaved. The Christed one is always free, not even liberated, because liberated means that they were enslaved. So they are free all the time, free. So the Christed one is free, operating from the level of the divine self. And then, of course, there is a body here in this world, and that body can be so perfectly attuned through the spiritual systems within it, through the nervous system, through the brain centers, and through the etheric body, to be so perfectly attuned that it receives the fullness of the light that the divine self is emanating as consciousness. So now the body is here, but really we cannot call it a person. Yogananda was one of those too. He never, of course, the real avatars don't speak about themselves. The false gurus call themselves all sorts of things. Yogananda was a Christed one. He was operating from the level of the divine self, and so there was a body here that looked like him, obviously, but all consciousness was coming from the divine self. It was not coming from the world of delusion. From the world of delusion, we can get great wisdom. People can be so incredibly knowledgeable. They can have what we would call wisdom knowledge. They read it, they studied it, they memorized it. They can speak about it. Like imagine when you go to the church, right? Uh, Not that I have really much experience with that, but I imagine that when you go to the church, maybe there is a priest who has no idea, but they are so knowledgeable of the scripture and they speak with passion and maybe even goodwill. But without the divine self, they cannot be speaking from the divine self. They are just speaking from samsara. So if there was a Christed being in this world, and we've had many, and now you are here, then you would be operating from the level of your complete self, the true self, unaffected by any delusion which only can exist in samsara. So if I compare, let's say, samsara to all this annoying insect that just wants to annoy and bite and sting, then that insect can only operate below the level that we call the threshold of liberation. It cannot reach the divine self. It just doesn't have the power. It's impossible for anything from the world of samsara to reach the incredible level of the divine self. So that would mean that the person, I cannot even call them a person, but the body would be here, the consciousness would be streaming from the divine self, and the body would be able to talk. The body would be walking, the body would have a face, the body would look very human, of course, but it would have an operating system coming from another world. And so then things would be happening in this world. But those things could never touch the being within the body. They could kill the body, it wouldn't matter at all. Because there would be no fear. There would be no attachment. There would be no fear of anything. It could not be harmed, the being within. So that's what's happening to us all. Today, after we arrived, I had a little bit more time to focus on some slides that would depict what's going on here. So, a typical person in this world, and I have to make that distinction, and this is the one where I think it's really important. We focusing here on the children of God. What do the children of God have? The children of God have a spiritual architecture within not only their physical body, which means the nervous system has the potential to reach God. It is through the nervous system, it is through the spine, and it is through the raising of their life force. And that life force we know in this world as the coiled serpent. But of course, the original nature of the children of God is never to have a coiled, asleep serpent. It is to be fully awake and fully ascended all the time, ascended and free. So children of God have a spiritual structure within them. It is the nervous system, it is the brain centers, it is the etheric body, it is the spine that becomes this multidimensional ladder connecting them to other planes. That's what makes us multidimensional. We are connected through an, to us, invisible structure with other planes. And it would be for all of us the plane of the soul, the plane of Christ, the plane of cosmic consciousness, which is the divine self. But of course, we call it self-realization. I was thinking how to depict self-realization. When a child of God is lost in this world, which I think we all got lost in this world, at some point, maybe still, but we can all be found because the structure is there. So everybody can be found again. Found not by someone else, but from within. This is internal self-recovery, recovering the true self. So being lost in this world is to believe the world, to be afraid of the world, not to have divine confidence in the world, not operating from the level of the divine self. So that means a person has this amazing potential. The potential is the ladder, Jacob's ladder. That's what it is. They call it Jacob's ladder, but it is really a ladder that goes through the spine, through the crown, into the divine self. That's why we need, in self-realization, to move from the mud, stop looking at the mud, which is the world of matter, whether we like it or not. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter whether you like matter. But the thing is that children of God lost in the world of matter by being stuck in the bottom of their spine. The bottom. So the very basic stuckness is the body only as identity, emotions and thoughts as identity. That is very deep, sticky mud. Now, if the person is just looking at the world of matter, they're not focusing on the world that is above them, but also through them. You see, it is within us all, but it has to be climbed up to. This is about ascension from within. Some masters have done it, and we call them today ascended masters. But the thing is that it's about the ascension of our life force from the world of the mud. The world of the mud is the world of duality. It makes it so tricky. If it was not tricky, all of us would be now ascended and free. But is the world ascended and free? It is not. Because it is very, very elaborate. It is a trap upon a trap upon a trap upon a trap. Not easy, but that's why we hear now the children of Christ, the children of God, who have been trained for this. We have trained for this for so long. We have passed all these tests by Divine Mother to be here now and to know this, not from reading it, because if we read it, there would be delusion in it. If we repeated it from the outside sources, we would be spreading nonsense. It needs to be accurate from within. Yogananda was incredibly accurate and evolutionary. Through meditation, he reached higher and higher and higher states of consciousness because he too became, here we would call it a person. So he had to move through his own ladder to go to the highest point of his own being to have the big picture. The big picture can only be seen from the top. If we go halfway through, we don't see the big picture. We only see partial picture. So we encourage each other in this world. It is not an infinite path. It is not infinite self-improvement. That would be nonsense. It is just restoring our own self as the center of our being. That means let us stop looking at the mud of the world. Not that we deny it, we need to transcend it. That means I climb up the ladder of my spine. I climb to the 33rd degree of my own being, which is why they tell us that Jesus was self-realized at the age of 33. It all has to do with metaphors. It is one metaphor after another metaphor. It just tells us get to the highest degree of your being. All of it is just metaphors because they had to hide the truth from the false matrix. And so you get to the top of your being into the divine self. That's self-realization. If I'm in the mud and I keep looking up and I say, I know the divine self is up there, I don't know myself. I see it maybe, but I don't know it. So that's self-realization. I think this is the best picture I can come up with of one has to climb the ladder of the spine. And that's what we do when we meditate and when we transcend our first three chakra, not by denial, but up goes the serpent of light. And that can only happen through Christ consciousness, which is all love that is not affected by anything in this world. This is a quote from Ananda Mahima. To know the self is to be the self. What does it say? Again, we cannot understand it if we are not the self. It can only be understood, and this is like the tricky part and a little unfair. It can only be understood after it has been accomplished. After we have climbed the ladder, we can say, oh, I now know the self. Only after. After it is done, everything will make sense. Until then, it's just, saying, let's go. So, to know the self is to be the self. That's right. How can we know something that we are not? So, in this ascension, we are now going through a process that many people speak about. They describe it of different ways. There is the guy in England that physicists, some of you listened to, you shared it here in the chat. I don't really remember his name, but he speaks about these two waves coming in June and into July. David Clemens, that's right. So, I totally understand when people speak about it this way because it is so, it is happening. But it's great to have the knowledge of the divine self, to know how to fully apply what energies are coming in and understand the big picture. Thank you. So what is happening is that in higher realms, the beings call this photo metamorphosis. That means two things. We are being changed from within by light, but also light within us is changing. So we are going through a massive change, which of course means, again, accelerated evolution into our true nature. It is the most important thing. So I'm going to get to share about what just happened here through the waters of the Caribbean. And I actually brought with me several gallons. And so I'm going to keep those and bring those to Mount Shasta, for example, for doing our work, and keep those for the work that we do because they contain knowledge, pure knowledge. How is that even possible? The waters of the mother are her quantum computer. She stores knowledge like we store knowledge here on chips or whatever technology we use. She stores knowledge from cosmos in her waters. So when you can see the waters, you will see knowledge of cosmos written into the waters. Not just in this world, but in all other worlds. So Divine Mother, as you know, she sends us on some funny missions. This one was really actually pleasurable, I must admit. It's like, okay, going to the Caribbean, I accept. So It's really wonderful. So when you find that you have resistance within yourself, when you receive guidance and inspiration, and when there is resistance, that's where it ends. Resistance is always an obstacle. Um, Divine Mother doesn't really operate within what we would call here, the logic of the false matrix. She operates completely differently. She operates just like Divine Self, through inspiration, through love, through service, through freedom, through spontaneous action that is always in service to her. So that's how we ended up with my husband in one of the little keys of Turks and Caicos, and it happened to be the smallest one with no people who live there. It was really facing this vastness. These waters look like this without like anything that you need to change. If you've been there, like, this is the color of the water. There is nothing what I would call human energy, and this is pretty much where it is. So there is nothing above it until you get to the Bermuda Triangle, and it actually is part of the bottom line of the Bermuda Triangle. So I was really wondering how she orchestrated it all, without much planning, just really randomly, accidentally ending up on this little island where you have no permanent residence, no roads, no shops, you cannot buy anything. It was really absolutely incredible. So after we spent time with the waters, the night for me was a huge, huge, I would call it, awesome, positive, shocking revelation. So life-changing. And it started around midnight. So, we went to sleep, and around midnight, I woke up in a state that was a state that allows all your senses to perceive the ethers, but you don't leave the body. So a little bit different from out of body. So I kept chanting my ohms. I was focusing on the third eye so I can see it all and translate here into words what took place. So again, this was you could call it a private private island, private beach. With not a single human. We made a joke because there was one pelican who would come and visit. So we said we had one person with us, and it was the pelican. So this was revelation. I believe Divine Mother wanted us to be in the waters to receive her knowledge, to receive information that will be important for our ascension. What is ascension? Ascension is going up from descension. So descent, sorry. So we have descended. So now we need to ascend. As you know, we've had many failed attempts to complete planetary ascension. Ascension is not the end goal, meaning ascension is simply a step on the spiral of evolution up. When your Kundalini awakens at the bottom of the spine, that spiral, there is a spiral that starts moving, first obviously has to move from beyond the first and the second and the third chakra into your heart. That alone is ascension. So that is a natural progression of our world. Our world was supposed to naturally progress, but instead it got stuck. So ascension is not like you complete it and then it's done. Ascension is something that eternally expands all worlds into more. So this would be a great start for us to participate in planetary ascension, to return the true nature. This obviously cannot happen without Divine Mother, and it cannot happen without Christ consciousness within us. So if a person is in this world and they are in their personality self, they surely see the world as sometimes wonderful and sometimes threatening, sometimes pleasing and sometimes lacking something that would be pleasing, sometimes really great, fantastic, but also there would be days of incredible sorrow and perceiving the world as changing, which it is, which is not bad, but changing from good to bad, from bad to good. That is the trap of the false matrix. It is artificially created for the world to change from good to bad, from bad to good. Those are the conditions of the false matrix. We have many, many, many changeable worlds in this cosmic creation, but that change happens from joy to more joy, from beauty to new type of beauty, from one form that already was perfect because it was created through love to another form that will be created through love. So change happens because it is the nature of cosmic creation, of course. Without change, everything would be static and there would be no expansion. Divine Mother is all about expansion. She's always looking for novelty. She's looking for innovation. So without that, we could not have actually change. So change is actually important. But it's not change from bad to good and from good to bad. It is change from good to good to good to good to good. So in this world, we got stuck in the world of good and bad and good and evil. We will speak about that. In that world, the freedom is lost. The person who is lost in duality, in the world of good and bad, is actually no longer free. That person prefers, of course, good conditions, doesn't want bad conditions. When bad conditions happen, they want the good conditions. And so the pendulum of good and bad keeps swinging as the trap and the prison that one doesn't even realize. To find freedom again, the only way is the reunion with the divine self, with spirit. And remember, I know that you all are master teachers here, master beings, so you understand that spirit created the soul. So they are not the same level of our being. So if we want to go to the absolute within our own being, we go all the way. After we self-realize the soul, another plane opens. It does not open without self-realization of the soul. It is like a game where we need to unlock the next level before we are allowed to unlock the next level. And so for us, we want to unlock first the soul plane, our own soul. And after that, when we have self-realized the soul plane, which means we've climbed the ladder, we got to see it, we got to be in it, we got to perceive it, and that can take, a very long time in human terms. So in teachings of Yogananda, for example, that I've been sharing here, I experienced it as a process that took 2 years to self-realize the soul plane. So that's, a lot of a lot of days. And so then we come into the plane of the spirit, which is the deathless plane. And not that the soul can die, the soul cannot die, but the soul originated in spirit. From our perspective, the soul and the spirit are eternal, but actually, to be correct, from the perspective of spirit, only spirit can be eternal and changeless. So only the self as the spirit can be found in all things that are of nature. Anything of nature. The galaxies, the atoms, the trees, the plants, the animals, the person, the beings on another planet. We would call them maybe extraterrestrials, whatever it is. Whatever is of that nature has spirit within. It is the essence of creation, of course. Without spirit, there is no juice. It is the juice in all things. So here, in this world, we are a world that ended up in big trouble. And many people have many different theories about it, and many people have written, religions are centered around it. But what the waters in the Caribbean revealed is what blows my mind. It is so clear, so simple, and we will all understand it in a way that we will also have a tool to liberate our being completely and eternally into our true nature. So this world is just one of the worlds. This world is one of the worlds that ended up actually possessed. It originated in the original creation as what we would call the Garden of Eden, the beautiful planet that didn't have what she has today, which is predatory nature. She was fully sustained by the light, that we would call the light of God. She was fully sustained by the juice of God, and all beings were free. All beings were free, including free from any attachment to this specific plane, because everybody was a visitor. They knew they came here for an experience. Nobody was born and nobody went through the process of death. So imagine, quite a different world. And then there was a force in this cosmos. It is a force known under many names. Some people even call it the Great Nothing, which is very interesting when I show you the picture of this force. This force has many different expressions, but I would call it the ultimate evil. And the ultimate evil is not necessarily something that would look like a person, that would look like the devil, or that would look a certain way. Doesn't have a face, doesn't have eyes, doesn't have arms and legs, but it expresses itself through many beings who do have those features. So many beings became the operators of the force, and they would operate it from within and then manipulate others through the same evil intent. So in the waters of the Caribbean, what happened to me, suddenly I would say, face to face with this force, and this is exactly what I would say it looks like. And it's in its essence. Take away all that, would have a shape and form, and really see it as a field, like an infinite gray sky with darker and lighter shades of gray. The little dot is actually something that the force is doing and has been doing maybe for, in human terms, billions, if not trillions of years. To me, this is how the world got possessed and ended up in the hands of what we would call demonic forces. I was listening to John St. Julian Babawamayama, and he described demons as disincarnate entities. I would not call it that at all in any way, but I know what he's saying, for example, but that's how language becomes an obstacle. This would be one indescribable force in cosmos that was looking for a host planet or maybe host planets. And it found Earth to be actually a planet where it penetrated the kundalini of the planet with that little dot as small as a pinhead. So, for example, when you do your laundry, sometimes you find that you can buy laundry detergents that are concentrates. That means that in a tiny little dot, there will be a lot of power. This works the same way. In a tiny little dot is huge evil influence. So with that, as I was facing this force and Divine Mother was showing me all of this through her living waters, the living memory of this world, how we fell, how we descended, how did this world end up being ruled by actually demonic beings in many different shapes and forms from different dimensions and different interdimensions. It's complicated. But I want to talk about the beginning of this before it became so complicated. To start with, it's pretty simple. A being that doesn't have shape or form can focus itself into tiny little dots to create a concentrate of itself, and then insert this little pinhead of its evil into the life force we know as Shakti, as Kundalini, as life force, as the coiled serpent within us, as the Kundalini of the earth, as the life force of the earth. And then it acts like poison, very powerful poison. And of course, you can imagine what happens. So I saw how this really happened here on planet Earth. And again, it used to be a planet that we would say is planet of goodness, planet of oneness, planet of one family of these divine beings coming here to experience their, not life, because life is very it's the wrong idea when we say life and death, because there is only life in the creation of the original divine matrix. There is no death, meaning nobody goes through a process of dying and death, and yet we all go through a process of shape shifting from different forms into other forms without the need to be born or die. But there is change. Change is actually exciting for the universe. And not just this universe, but all universes. So when this poison was inserted into the life force of this planet, then it started to poison what the planet would emanate. And that was the beginning of what we would call the fall from grace. Then I was really facing this evil force myself, and I could feel its unbelievable power. Unbelievable power. Now, some people think that these beings of darkness are not powerful, and yet they are, I would call them unbelievably powerful. They have the same power of focus, just like beings of light, but they work with darkness, they work with evil. They must be able to do their dark arts, which means it requires unbelievable mastery of darkness, of evil. They have desires that are evil. They have intentions that are evil. They want to manipulate, possess, operate, and be not seen. And this is so important. The worst enemy, of course, is the one that we don't know that exists. And I believe this is why it's so important. The worst enemy of humanity and of the children of God has been hiding within the life force. And you see how the gravity of this toxic needle, pinhead, has been causing the pull towards the world of sensuality. And, we think there's nothing wrong with our senses, but it's part of our manipulation. It's attachment to the world of matter. It is attachment to the physical body. It is sexuality in this world, and people might think, oh, sacred sexuality, that's going to be how we transcend it. It's not at all what this is about. This original creation didn't even have sexuality, because the energy that we call sexual energy here in this world was our life force. It was our divinity. It didn't make us turned on. We were always turned on, but not for each other's bodies, not through the body parts, but we were beings of light turned on all the time, which is what the mystics then, of course, self-realize. They call it the ecstasy. It's existing in a state of ecstasy that has nothing to do with the body or body parts. So this force twisted it. And of course, it pulled us deeper and deeper into the world of what we today know as matter. Deeper and deeper into our attachment to the world of matter through things, and this is, I should not even say it, but of course it is through things like anything physical that attaches to this world, including sexuality. 5 senses manipulated by this force, not allowing us to see through the original nervous system, pulling the nervous system down into the world of the deep, dark roots of the tree of life instead of the crown. It's all upside down. So it also pulled us into the world of thought, constant thought about the world itself, instead of new thought, which would come as inspiration, not as the insect, but it would be the light coming from the consciousness of the divine self. And then finally, the trap is inexplicable. Let's not limit it to absolutely anything, because, again, language would not allow us to actually see the fullness of it. And we helping each other, right? So And I wish we could just sit together and like totally decode it all and all of us be liberated. Because it's bigger than what we can even imagine. It's bigger than what words can describe. So, you know, on the call before, and Moni, thank you for sharing. And, you know, it's beyond. It's beyond. So it would be pulling us into the world by gravity. It actually is a force of gravity. You know, Divine Mother is magnetic. Divine Mother is the glue that holds cosmos together through love. This force is completely void of love. It doesn't know love. It only knows lust. It only knows greed. It only knows any shade and degree of evil. It can even be just thoughts that it attracts to us. Thoughts of maybe, it could be depression, it could be just feeling down, it could be doubt, it could be, not nice thoughts about each other. It could be judgment, it could be all of it. And it is all of it. Now, for some people, obviously, they allowed this to completely take control over them. And then you would have people who truly abuse, who, do horrible things. But it also can operate at a very, I would say, invisible level, even in very nice people, by attracting things to them that are a certain degree. It could just be gossip, like it could be something that doesn't expresses Christ consciousness. Yeah. So there's so much, right? And I believe that, what I found the most shocking about this, that I could tell that maybe, and this is my guess, 99% of children of God got penetrated by this force like this. And again, you might not ever see it because it is meant to be hidden. It never wants to be seen. That would be the end of it. So it's trying to integrate itself into our personality self, into the way that we think, into our maybe judgments, into our fears, into our worries, into our choices, into our relationships, all of it. So I wouldn't, I used a word for this. And this word, of course, is baggage, pure baggage, but I'm going to say it. I would call this little dark dot sin. But of course, religions now, and many of us experience maybe some religions in our lives that spoke about sin. And so I don't know exactly what religions say about sin, but we all have heard it. And so we would think it's a sin to do this, it's a sin to do that, it's a sin to be like that. But actually, I will tell you from what I saw that this, if you call it original sin, this is the original sin. Now, then people say, oh, I know what sin is. But I'd say, let's delete everything we know about sin and call it this little dot. And then it expresses itself through millions of ways, not only through that which we know traditionally as sin. So then, for example, it would give us thoughts of insecurity, thoughts of inferiority, or whatever they called. That too initiates in this little dot that is the sin. So it's a big word, right? It's so much baggage. But replace it, for example, with the word chip of evil. I can say, oh, this is an insert. Some of you here said implant. And, like a chip. Let's say like a computer chip. So if we can call the computer chip the original sin, that would be the same thing. So I saw how this huge force was trying to absolutely place itself invisibly into everyone and everything that has life force. Exactly. Now the good news. How do we remove that dot? How do we make sure it's not operating within us? It's trying so hard. And maybe, I was just shown the ancient past and this is the time when it happens. But that's exactly what will do it. It is us doing it. So to be able to remove it, right? Can you go to someone, pay them money and say, oh, I need this out? No. And I will tell you from my experience what happened. So this is like a quote. I was trying to find quotes in the Bible today and Yogananda to understand them now differently from this new perspective. So I was facing this evil force and it turned this, it created this little pinhead of evil and it was trying to penetrate my life force. And that was, educational. You cannot know something unless you experience it. And so I started to panic, of course. I was doing everything that I normally would do. I'm a child of God, Divine Mother, come and help me, Divine Father, Jesus, Christ, Isa. I was chanting Om, and then all of it came, all of it surrounded me. But I realized, as a moment of self-realization, that nothing from the outside can prevent it from entering. That it's an internal job. It's an internal energetic setup that prevents it from entering or liberates us from it because it is burned in the light of Christ consciousness. So, Christ consciousness, as you can imagine, is unbelievably misunderstood. And again, it's going to be our focus here to completely step into it from within, to know it, to feel it, to experience it, to be in it, to live it, to act it, to speak it, or to be silent in it. It is a state that is not at all normally present in the human condition, even in the children of God. It's always available, but not really experienced. It is not the lived reality. Because children of God had this little dot of evil that operated through them. Even if it's just a little bit, it's too much. So when I was in that kind of, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do? This is not an entity. This is not a little demon. This is the original evil. This is the original sin. This is how it all started. This is how humanity ended up, in a fallen world. So if it was easy, then we all would be liberated beings. But obviously, as you can tell, civilizations upon civilizations have been failing to ascend because they were burdened by this force that was possessing the entire planet. So I realized in that moment that we live in a world that has basically two realms. One very successful realm, let's call it the realm of this force, the realm of demons, the realm of evil, the realm that has been invisible. The invisible enemy, again, is the most dangerous one because nobody sees it and they look in the wrong places. Maybe people point at each other, but we all should be pointing and looking where it originally came from. That's why I found it so, important to know. So then, as I was surrounded by Divine Mother and Divine Father, and I was chanting my Oms, I realized the opportunity is within us all. And it is the shift to Christ consciousness within. And it's not a small shift. It is the ultimate shift that does it. It's not that we go in and out of it today I'm in my Christ self, tomorrow I'm back to being, the ordinary person. And I mean ordinary in a way that we operate differently at that level, right? This is where one becomes completely illuminated from within by Christ, by Krishna consciousness, which actually is the complete intelligence, the love, the light of God that shines from within. This is not about sending love. This is not about, visualizing it. It's just truly what they call in the religions being born again. It's a different state. I've been trying to think about it today, how to describe it best, so that we see how different it is from the typical operating system of a person. So if we say that a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, those are such very, very different states, aren't they? It's a completely different way of being. It's a very different way of living. So if the personality self is the caterpillar, it operates so completely differently from a butterfly. It looks completely differently. It lives differently. It's having a different experience. It has a different level of freedom. So that to me would be that paramount shift. It must be so complete. It cannot be partial. It must be so absolute from the caterpillar into the butterfly of the divine self, into the Christ self. So then I realized as I was battling with this force in a way that I studied the only way out and the only way in is in to the Christ self. So, as mystics, we surely have some experiences with Christ consciousness, whether they gradual or absolute. And so I tapped into Christ consciousness within. In that moment, the light of God got ignited as it is, because it's the light of spirit. It is the fire of spirit. And of course, that not only prevents this little dot of evil from entering, if one had it in them, which I would assume that the vast majority of humanity does, it would instantaneously be burned. That would be it. Not even like transmuted into the light, nothing. Burnt. Bam, gone. So, there are people who, right, do exorcism, but I would say exorcism would last probably for 2 minutes. The dot would go out, maybe by the power of a Christed being. But if the person who is being liberated from the dot is not actually in Christ consciousness, they are absolutely, again, vulnerable to this interference of their life force. All I did, I tapped into Christ light within and knowing what it is. So then I realized this is our true salvation, what religions talk about. Religion is just language again, trying to describe something through metaphors, not like lost in translation. So we would have to decode everything with this freshness of the divine self. So I found that, I guess it was Apostle Peter. Peter said, "There is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given among people by which we must be saved." So people would say, oh, they're talking about Jesus. But actually, that means, I believe this dot has been here for millions and maybe, no, actually billions of years for sure, because that's what brought evil into this world and into this planet. And hence, that's why we are here for her ascension. So, what is salvation? To be safe from what? To be liberated from this interference. And no one else, it is not a person of Jesus who can do it. And when they say he died for our sins, I again think that is just lost in translation. Christ's consciousness is the liberating force within us all, that when it is ignited to its fullness, we go through this photo metamorphosis into the butterfly, which is the divine self. And the light of Christ is now burning within us so bright that nothing can come and interfere eternally. And so that to me is the real meaning of salvation. No external savior. What is it even called? No external savior. It is internal. So I noticed since March that we are being trained in the ethers to be like that, to be the Christed one. So I found something very, very interesting again in the Bible, again lost in translation. No one can ascend into heaven except the one who descended from heaven. So again, I don't know how the Bible explained this, but to us, the children of God, it is so clear and clean what is happening here on planet Earth. Children of God, no matter what they do in this world, no matter if they have the dot of evil or not in them, it doesn't matter. They will always remain children of God, which means the origin is the truth. The origin is the divine self. The origin is pure love and pure light. Whatever happened after, it doesn't even matter. The origin is the light above us, part of our ladder. We came from that light. We descended from so-called heaven. Heaven is just a very naive way of describing higher planes and higher worlds. So all children of God descended from the light, from the Spirit. And so all children of God will be able to ascend. Absolutely. Because they have spiritual architecture. Now, I have been speaking about also synthetic people in this world, and soon it will be revealed to us. And even John St. Julian, in his most recent video, mentions at the end of his video synthetic beings because they hear. We can see it, everybody who can see sees. It's not something like a conspiracy, it is divine knowledge. We have in this world, and this is very important for us children of God to know, we have here synthetic beings who look 100% like us, people. You would not be able to tell the difference between a person and a person. The only thing that is different is the inner architecture. So to me, the Bible is speaking about this. No one can ascend into heaven except the one who descended from heaven. That is a very simple way of saying if a person did not come from spirit, they cannot go back to spirit. They are synthetic people. And they are the ones who have been creating so much chaos and separation and created even our culture. But guess what? They don't even need the dot of evil in them because they don't have life force. The life force is what is the architecture of a child of God. If a child of God is a child of God, they have life force within them, even if it's asleep, even if they became completely possessed, it doesn't matter. A child of God is a child of God. Those children of God will be able to ascend. Synthetic people are not actually real humans, but they look like one, they talk like one, they behave in the, I would call the most, what we would call typical, we call it typical person, lost in this world, but they set the tone to the culture. They are incapable of divine love. They are incapable of empathy, but they can pretend to have empathy. They can say all the right things without feeling it, without experiencing it. So I just found it interesting when I came across this quote that basically to me it describes there are also people here who obviously cannot ascend, but they are not human beings. This is very, very, this is complicated. It's not for everyone. It can be very confusing, but it should be pointing at the right thing. That children of God have Christ consciousness available to them. They have architecture in their spine. They have architecture in the etheric body. And they have a nervous system that can be directed at the divine self. I found it fascinating looking at what Jesus said. Satan, who is the God of this world. And then again in different John, 12:31, Jesus says, Satan is the ruler of this world. Well, yes, but not since the beginning. At the beginning was the true divine creation, free from the interference of this being, free from it. The descent into the world of the personality self, into the false matrix, into samsara, is actually the result of the interference of this being that you see here by focusing itself into these little concentrated dots and then penetrating the life force, and I'm going to say of every child of God, and then manipulating the children of God from within. Imagine operating from within. That is the place. Nice hide. Influencing thoughts, words, actions, choices, influencing consciousness, influencing everything, but being unseen. Isn't that something? So, what is this ascension about? It is about returning this world again. Big question, right? We would have to be here for a very long time to explain the details of everything, but we have the big picture. The big picture, and I know everybody knows that as long as we believe this possession, which talks to us from within, pretending to be part of us, we are being operated by it. It is mind-blowing. I'm gonna say just one more thing and then we'll close. Sorry, it's been so long call, but there was so much. And there is more, but I'll have to come back. After all of this, the empowering message here for all of us is, if I have to sit every day in meditation for 8 hours, let's do it. My sense that came to me several times during that night was time is running out. We have no time. I wrote it down several times as I'm writing about it now. We have no time. And yet we still have time. But I felt the pressure. I felt such pressure of time that the most reasonable thing right now, and of course not fearfully, is I'm going to sit down, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to raise my energy up the spine, into my heart, into my Christ consciousness in the third eye. I'm going to connect with Christ within, that is available to you and me because we are children of God, and we must self-realize this nature. If we don't do it, we will not be able to burn this interfering force that is trying to be part of our life force and manipulate us, not only against the world, against ourselves, but also against each other. What do you think? The children of God are supposed to be the oneness of all life, but how much have they been manipulated to be against each other? You've seen it. I've seen it. And so I felt that in this moment, as we have received so much knowledge from Divine Mother and Divine Father, the most important thing to do, whether it is actually even called an action, is to sit down and look within and seek for this light that is absolutely the power over all other influences. Yeah. And many people are receiving the same message about, time is running out. Why is time running out? Why don't we have eternity to succeed? You heard Patricia Cota Robles talk about it. We cannot miss this opportunity for ascension. We came here for this. We have grown so much. We are no longer in the false matrix, and so now it's just a little one more step from the caterpillar to the butterfly. And for that, our thoughts interfere all the time. They are the insect of the false matrix. I saw something fascinating, and I'll close with that. I saw that, let's say we now will have this being here in this world, or many of them, and they will be helping others to be liberated by pointing at the dot, that little dot of evil in the life force, and the Kundalini, turning the Kundalini into a serpent of darkness, and instead of the serpent of light that she is. And I saw how if, let's say we would have, this being pointing and saying, look within, make sure you ignite yourself, Christ consciousness, then the little manipulator dot would actually turn against that person. And that is the story of what we call Jesus. Because that little dot doesn't want to lose the host, doesn't want to be seen, doesn't want to be revealed, doesn't want to be transmuted by the light of God. It's the end of it. And we know that is how actually this force started. It didn't want to be one with God. So when we ignite Christ within, it is instantaneously transmuted. It's gone, burned in the light of God. And this is what Yogananda always said is the highest state of being. When people ask him, how do you protect yourself? How do you protect yourself from evil? He said, I don't. I'm in a state of Christ consciousness. In the state of Christ consciousness, one does not need protection. One needs protection if one is not in the state of Christ consciousness. This is the ultimate. It burns all else and nothing can touch this. That's why even we have the stories, again, metaphors of Jesus in the desert and being tempted by Satan. There is nothing that can touch the untouchable. This is the untouchable. So I would say, for me personally, this is not the first time that we hear. We've been trained for this. For some, it was obvious the moment they entered this world, why they came here, what they doing, and now it's just more and more and more clear with all these details. Yeah, well, time has run out for the false matrix for sure. But, as someone when they are drowning, right? They trying to grasp and recreate whatever they had. They don't want to lose. And this is the moment that we are going through, as you can tell. There's a lot. And one thing that I have been mentioning here, which is important to know, there are many operators of the false matrix here hiding behind the face of the human person. So again, not known, not seen. People don't know what they're facing. If they knew, they would surely not allow certain things here in this world. But it's up to each one of us to go within and discover what is our natural state of being. And it is not the personality self. Divine Mother is showing us this so that we take that action from within, because we are supposed to now step into our maturity. From the seeds that we have been, we are coming into a state that is known as the tree of life. And the tree of life is our wholeness. And for that, just like the seed, we need to go within and burst open. And so with that, my dear friends, let us burst open into the Christ that we always have been. So thank you so much for being here and many blessings to you all.